Okay, welcome everyone to our next RootsMagic webinar on RootsMagic 8. And we'll just give people a minute or so to file in. And good morning out there to Diana, Jim, Sue, Sherilyn, Mary. We've got Central Florida, Ohio, Ontario, Washington, Tynan, where England, nice. A couple people from England. Let's see, Virginia, Seattle, Ontario, Colorado, Louisiana, Kansas, Texas, Arizona, Delaware, Wisconsin, California, Colorado. Nice. Well, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. This webinar, we're going to be talking about people and families in RootsMagic 8. Before we start the webinar, I just want to give a couple reminders. One, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on our website and our YouTube page, the archive, so you can watch this later on at any time. We also have other webinars. Our past webinars have been recorded and they're up there for viewing. And we also have more webinars scheduled for the future. So if you want to go ahead and register for those, that's at rootsmagic.com/webinars. We have another one later on this week and one early next week. And we'll be scheduling more as well. And it looks like we've got a lot of our participants are now here and ready to go. And so I'll turn the time over to Bruce.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so as Mike mentioned, we're going to be talking about people and families. And so we're going to be concentrating pretty much all of our time on the people page. And that's over here on the left-hand side. You can see that's what I'm on, is the people page. So we're going to be talking about the people page today. In the future webinars, we'll be doing all of these other tabs as well. But for today, this is what we're concentrating on. Now, if you've used older versions of RootsMagic, then you're probably familiar with this page, probably more so than the other pages, because in the older versions of RootsMagic, the people page was kind of like the main screen, and everything you did had to pop up a separate screen from this particular view, from the people page. So we have many of the same views. We have the pedigree view right here, which is going to be either a 5 or a 6 generation pedigree chart view. And I can just click to switch back and forth between those. Okay. And the next view is going to be the family view. And we'll come back to these and spend a little bit more time on each of these. And the family view is going to be the father, the mother, the 4 grandparents, the children, and one of the spouses, whichever is your preferred spouse for the children, for each one of the children if they have one. And if there's more children than will fit on a screen, there's a scroll bar over here on the right-hand side so that you can scroll and see all of the children right there. Okay, and like I say, we're going to come back. Then we have the descendant view. And the descendant view is going to be kind of the opposite of the pedigree view. It's going to be the person and then their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on. This is similar to the descendant view in older versions of RootsMagic as well, but with some enhancements. One of those being the ability to open and close generations. Okay, families. You can close an entire family. You can expand everybody out. You can close the whole thing down if you want right there, just by clicking the little plus or minus signs right there. Again, this is also available to choose a different number of generations. So if you choose 2 generations, that's going to give you kind of like the family view, except a bit more compact, where you're going to see dad, mom, and the kids. So you can go to 3 generations, 4 generations, whatever, all the way up to 7 generations. 7 generations, you could end up doing a lot of scrolling to find people. But we're going to come back to that as well. Fourth view is going to be the people list, and this is an alphabetical list of everybody in your file. Okay, this is similar to this index view over here, except that it shows a bunch of extra columns, a bunch of additional information besides just birth and death date. It can show you any number of other pieces of information out here, and you can customize it as well. And we'll talk about that in a bit. The fifth view is the couple list view. And this is basically a list of all the couples or families in your file. And this is going to give you a list of the father, the mother, the marriage date, and the marriage place for each couple or each family in your file. And again, we'll come back to that one. So let's go ahead and get back to the pedigree view. Actually, before I go, a number of people have asked, well, on this people view back in version 7, you used to have a timeline view and you used to have a web search view. Well, those have been moved to the appropriate locations. So for example, the timeline view is now, when I open up a person's edit screen, the timeline view is built right into the edit screen. It's right here. And so as you can see, in addition to the person's birth, marriage, their information, you can see that family information, the birth of spouse, children, and so on. If you don't want the timeline information, you can just click that and turn that off, and then you just see the edit screen exactly the way you're used to in 7 or older versions of RootsMagic. But that's where the timeline view has gone. The web search view is under search, so it's a web search, so that's where it belongs. So when you go to search, you have the little magnifying glass with the little spider web in it. That's your web search. So if you come here, there's your web search with all you choose what site you want to search. You can add new edit providers or edit the providers, so you can add more to that list. You can choose whether to show it in an external browser. And then you can enter name and birth year and death year, or you can just come down here to the list of everybody. You can do a search, you can select a person right there and then say find, and it will find them in the web search there. So that's where those two views that used to be on the main screen in RootsMagic are. But this page is now called the people page, so it's limited to being able to move around, navigate, and work with people or families. Okay. So let's just kind of jump into the pedigree view. As you saw, when I edited a person, I just double clicked on a person's name and that opened up their edit screen. There's several other ways that I can edit a person. One is by highlighting them. If I'm using the arrow keys, highlighting them, and I can press the enter key. When I press the enter key, that opens up the edit screen as well. There's a third way. It's a little bit more convoluted, but it's there. And that is when you are highlighting a person over here on any of these views, if you come over here, there's an edit button. And if you click that edit button, then it's going to open the edit screen for that person as well. Now, as long as we're here, I'll kind of point out a little basics about this, and we're going to come back to this as well. In addition to these 5 navigation views, in other words, moving around by ancestry or pedigree, or by family, or by descendant, or by just an alphabetical list of people or couples, as you move around from person to person, whoever you highlight is going to be selected and shown right here in this info panel. And from this info panel, it's going to show you it shows you their name in big letters up here, but it also shows you their lifespan. It's going to show you a relationship, and I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. That is the relationship to a particular person that I've selected. And like I say, I'll show you that in just a little bit. It'll also show you their primary photo. And if I click on that, it allows me to select a new primary photo or clear the existing primary photo. So it's not as hard to change the primary photo for a person as it was in 7. In 7, you had to go in and add a picture, and then you had to tag people, and then you had to say that that tag was the primary tag for the person. Here, you just click on the picture and select it. You also are going to see some information about that person, their events right here as well. There's some other tabs right here as well, and we'll come back to those in just a little bit. Okay. In addition,
before we move on,
yeah,
we're having a lot of questions. Can you just show the little slider bars regarding those?
the which slider bars?
Yeah, to make to expand and contract one side of
Oh,
size
okay.
of something.
Okay, so for example, if you wanted more room, keep in mind that I'm at a ridiculously low resolution here for the webinar's sake. In other words, we want to make sure that the text is not too small for people to see in this webinar. So this is quite a bit larger text, which takes up more room than you would traditionally have. Normally, you'd see a lot more of these panels than we have here. But if you did want to make it larger, there's a splitter right here down the side between this left panel and this right panel. And you can click on that and you can drag that back and forth to make that larger or smaller. Okay. It slows down with this webinar software running in the background. Okay, but you can see right there that it moves it and makes it a little wider, or I can move it and make it a little narrower here. If I want to adjust the size of these two side panels right here, I can do that as well with this one right here. And see, I can drag this up or down to make this bottom half or the top half larger or smaller. Now, if I also want more room, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, is I can collapse this side panel to give me a little bit more room by just clicking this little left arrow right there. And what that will do is it will close the little side panel up and leave it with just the little icons. And when I hover over an icon, you'll notice there's a little pop-up right there. You can see it says places, sources, media, tasks. Okay, so even if I don't necessarily remember what each one of these is for, if I point at it, it will tell me what it's for. So I actually personally usually leave this closed. I just so I have more room on the screen here. Okay. Now, one thing you can do in RootsMagic 8, which you were able to do before, is what's called color coding. And I don't know why that just collapsed there. Okay, you can do it. Yeah, I think what's going on is I think the scaling is getting me, and it's with that delay from the webinar software, it's tracking wherever so I got to leave my mouse there until it actually snaps in. Okay. Is what's called color coding. And color coding is available from this little pencil button up here. We're going to we have several buttons up here, and these buttons are specific to the people page here. Okay, so each one of those pages over there, the sources, the places, the whatever, the buttons on those pages are specific to those views, to those pages. So if I want to add a person, I just click on the plus and I can add an individual, or I can add a spouse or parents or a child to whoever's highlighted on the screen. If I want to delete something, I click on the trash can and it allows me to delete that highlighted person, or I can delete the family. And in either case, it will ask you to confirm that you really want to do that. It's not going to just do it. So if I say delete family, it's going to say, hey, here's this family. Are you really wanting to remove all of these people from the database? So I'm going to say no. Okay, there's two buttons here. There's the edit button and there's the tools button. Now the edit button brings down a menu of things that basically allow you to change something about the data itself. Okay, you're going to edit the data. Now that can be editing the person, that can be setting who the root person is, unlinking people from each other, rearranging the spouses or the children of whoever's highlighted, swapping the mother and the father. This is useful if for some reason you've imported a file or somehow accidentally entered the father and mother backwards. This will just let you swap them without having to unlink them and rehook them back up. Set living, this is useful if you want to basically say, I can go in and I say, I want to set living to false for a selected group of people. You'll select OK. RootsMagic will bring you up a list of everybody in the file, and you can select everybody that you want their living flag to be turned off or on. It'll go either direction. Color coding, this is the one we're going to show you in a second. Well, we'll show you it now. Color coding allows you to set the colors for any group of people. And one of the things we're getting asked for, so we added it in this last update, is when you select a color, when you want to set a color, instead of just having a list of colors, just the names, we now have a little color palette. And if you select a color, it shows you the name of the color up above it. So if I select that, it's red, turquoise, forest, khaki, lemon, chartreuse. Chartreuse, if you're like me, I had no idea what chartreuse meant, but now I can see chartreuse is kind of a yellowy looking, yellowy green color. And so you can pick your color that you want, and then you choose which people you want to color code. The ancestors of the current person, descendants of the current person, people selected from a list. If you do that, when you select OK, it's going to bring up a list of everybody in the database for you to select. So that lets you say, turn the color coding to blue for everybody that was born after 1800, but before 1900 and lived within 50 miles of, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, whatever. I mean, you can go in and set whatever criteria you want for that color coding. The highlighted person, that just means whoever's the current person right there, it's going to change just their color. So if I wanted to change him to chartreuse, I would just leave that and click OK. Or I can do a named group. So if I've got groups that I've created, I can select a group and everybody in that group will turn that color coding. So I'm going to go ahead and turn Leroy to chartreuse. So Leroy he'll now be chartreuse. And you'll notice that the color coding is right here in the front. It puts a tab to show you the color coding. In older versions of RootsMagic, it changed the text, but there were a lot of limitations to that for features that we have and features that we want to have in the future. So color coding is now shown as a color tab in front of the person on the pedigree view here. Now, if I want to move back and forth from generation to generation, I have these little arrows out here. And if I click on one of these arrows, it's going to move me back a generation. So in other words, if I click right here, it's going to move Henry down to here and Margaret down to there, and it's going to move me back a generation in time. Okay, and so now Leroy is my root person on this particular screen. If I want to move back the other way, I've got the arrow and I can click and I can go back and forth as many generations as I want. There's no limitation how many generations that I can go. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the family view. And the family view is similar in that it has the same type of name frames, and it has the person and their spouse, father and mother. It has their parents, and then it has their children lined up below them. And any children, if they're married, it will show the spouses of the children as well. And this works exactly like the pedigree view in that if I double click on a person, or I go up to the menu and say edit, or I press enter, or I go over here and click edit while they're highlighted, it will open up their edit screen for me there as well. Okay, now one other thing that you'll notice, and this is on both the pedigree and the family view, is there are these little icons for various things. And what these are for is there's several that can be there, and there's some that we don't even I don't even see. If if the person has any potential problems, there'll be a red circle with an exclamation mark, and you'll see, and when you click on this or hover over it, it will show you that there are, in this case, 3 problems. And I can click on that and I can see what the problems are. Parents were married after they were born. The father was born after, and the mother were both born after this person. So, and I can edit the person. I can, if it's not a problem, I can say that that's not a problem, or I can add it to my task list, or I can print this list of problems from right here. There's also icons for if you're connected to Family Search, if you're LDS and have LDS options turned on, there's options for ordinances as well. So there's a number of different icons that can show up there. And if, like I say, if you hover over them, then you can select and open up the screen that will help you with those particular problems. And they will show on each person on the family view and the pedigree view, and they will also show up here on this info view as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and now move to, the family view does have the little arrows, both directions, just like the pedigree view. They do the exact same thing. They move up or down a generation at a time. Okay, so let's move to Descendants View. In the Descendants View, as I mentioned, you can open and close or collapse generations. You will see the color coding. There's your color coding for each of these people shown in a tab in front of the person's name. Okay, the way the Descendant View works is you're going to have a person, and the generation from that person is going to be out in front of their name. So whoever is the very first person on this particular view is going to be generation 1. Okay, that person's spouse or spouses, if there's more than one, is going to have a plus sign. So Alice is Leroy's spouse. And again, like I say, I can collapse that if I want. Okay, number 2, this is generation number 2. So Anna is a child of Leroy and Alice. The plus means Erling is a spouse of Anna, and then Erling C, Norma are level 3 children. And you'll notice again, like I say, you're going to see all these spouses, and you're going to see generation after generation. But if you were right here and you wanted to see just Anna and Erling's children, that generation 3, what you would do is you would collapse the spouses right there, collapse the spouses for each of those generation 3. And now you're going to see Anna and Erling, and they have these children, and underneath the children, if they're spouses, so Janice had 2 spouses here. Okay, and then Erling has a spouse here. So that's kind of how you read this. Now, each one of these people, you're also going to be able to see their sex, their birth date, their birthplace, their death date, and their death place over here as well. Okay. You'll notice that there's little arrows right in this column right here. And sometimes this arrow points left, and sometimes this arrow points right. If this arrow points left, it means you want, if you click on it, it means you want to go to that person's parents. Okay, you want to go back another generation. So this allows me to go back to Leroy's parents. This allows me to go back to Alice's parents. And spouses are going to always have, well, if the spouse has parents, are going to always have a left arrow so that you can jump to the parents of the spouses. Now, occasionally you will find a right arrow, but the only time you're going to see that is if there is in the people that have that are at the maximum generation, that have spouses and children of their own. So the way to see this is if I go and switch this to 5 generations. Okay, people that are in the 5th generation, like Allison here, these people, you're going to see the right arrow so that you can move down a generation from them as well. Now, if you ever want to get back to your main root person, just come up here and click on the home, the little house up here in the upper right hand corner, and that is going to take you to the home page. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to let's go ahead and jump to the people list right here. As I mentioned, the people list is an alphabetical list. And you can, but in addition to the names, you can also add other columns. And these columns that you add can be ones that are built into RootsMagic, or they can be user-defined ones that you've created yourself. Now, there's a number of things that are really nice about this particular view. One is the ability to customize. Okay, so if I come over here to customize on this right-hand side, I can see right here, these are all the available fields that are in my database. And like I say, some are built in and some are ones that were created, user defined. If I want one of these fields to be over in my actual view, I can highlight it and say add it to the view. It will add it over here to the list, and then I can highlight it and click move up or move down to position that column. If I want it to be the very first column, I just move it up to the very top. If I wanted this family search ID, for example, instead of having it as the first column, if I wanted the sex to be the first column, I would just highlight it and click move up until it's the first column. And then when I click OK, that is now my first column. Now, like I say, I can customize this as much as I want. I can rearrange the columns. I can add whichever columns I want. One thing that's useful to know is however you design this, when you go into these searches, whenever you go into these searches, the person search or the person advanced search, when you go into either one of those, the results there is going to use this same layout. So if you're doing a search and you want a specific thing showing in that layout, just come to this main person list view, customize it, and then go back and you'll have that showing. Another option here is the show everyone. And that's what it's going to do by default. But if you have created any groups, you can come select any group and RootsMagic will filter this list to only show you those people in that group. Now, if you don't have a group, but you want to filter things, just come up here to the search right up here and type in a name. So if I wanted just the Leroys, I can type comma Leroy. And here's a list of the Leroys in my database. And you'll notice it doesn't have to be their first name. It can be a middle name. It can be, Leroy with a capital R. It's going to catch every Leroy. If their nickname is Leroy, it's going to find them. But it's going to basically filter this list to give you just those people that match. The reason I put that comma is because I was looking for people with the first name of Leroy. If I type in just Leroy by itself, I'm not going to have any results because nobody in the database has the last name of Leroy, or Leroy does not even exist in their name. If I type in LER, I've got, Ambler, Butler, I've got any number of people whose last name contains LER. Also, if I'm looking for a person with a particular record number, I can just type that record number in as well. 300 and boom, it just jumps to that person with that record number. So that's just a quick way to get to somebody. If you use record numbers to get to people a lot, that's a very useful way to do that.
While you brought it up, we had a couple of people ask how to get the record numbers on there.
Oh, how to get the record number on this particular view or on just general views? Well,
just any of those. They see the record numbers on your screen. I didn't know if you're going to get to that or not.
Okay. Right here in this particular one, I have record numbers on their name, but I also have a record number column. So if you want a record number column, all you got to do is go into customize and add the record number column. If you want the record number to show like after the name here or here and any number of these other places, what you need to do is go into settings. You go into the settings here, and right here on this one that's actually already highlighted, the general settings, you're going to see an option called number to display. And what you want is RIN. That's just record identification number. And that'll put the record number. Now, if you don't want any numbers to show, select none. If you want a reference number, and a reference number is data that you've typed in yourself. It's a fact type, just like birth or death or marriage. It's a fact type you can go in called reference number. And so you can go into a person and add a fact type called reference number, and it's just an empty field. You can type whatever you want in it. So like if you have your own magical numbering system, you can put this reference number, and if you select this option, that number will display after each person's name. And then also the family search ID. So if you're working with family search and you want their ID on family search, and you've linked them to family search already, you can do that as an option as well. So you just go in and select whatever you want. Now, I did see somebody ask, why don't we have a save button on every one of these pages? And the reason is because it automatically saves it. So like as soon as I move away from here, any changes or selections that I've made in settings have automatically saved. Even if I just quit from the program, even if I make a change and exit from the program, it will remember it. It saves it as soon as it moves away from that settings screen. Okay, the final of the main views is the couple view. And like I say, the couple view is a list of all the couples. And as you can see right now, it's sorted by the father's name. If I want to sort by the mother's name, and actually this works in the people list view, I just forgot to mention it. If I want to sort by the mother's name, I just click on mother in the header, and now it's sorting by the mother's name. If I want to sort by the marriage date, or if I want to sort by the marriage place. So when I click on one of these headers, it sorts by in that particular order. And then I also have the option to edit the father or edit the mother from right here as well. Okay, and I can also search. If I do this search up here, it's going to search by whichever column is highlighted. So like if I were to type in Leroy, it's going to find, if I type in comma Leroy, okay, it finds all of the comma Leroys. If I type in Mary, okay, you'll see that it's actually doing the Marys as well. So it searches, it will search both of them. It will search both of them there. Okay, one last thing I want to show you here. Under edit, under the edit menu, they have this set relationships. And when I click on set relationships, it asks me to select a person to show the relationships to, and then I click set relationships. So like if I want this relationship up here in this upper left corner to be the relationship to me, what I want to do is say show relationships to this person and select myself, then click set relationships, and it's going to go through my whole database and mark everybody what their relationship is to me. But it's not limited to just me. I can pick any person. So if I want to see how people are related to, my fourth great grandfather, I can select my fourth great grandfather and say show all the relationships relative to them. And then as I move around from person to person, it's going to show me the relationship to that person, what the relationship to that person is. Okay, so I'm going to hop over here to this left-hand panel and kind of talk a little bit about it, show you some of the stuff in it. We showed you how if you highlight a person that it shows you the details, it shows you all of their facts. It also shows you how many sets of parents they have right here, one set of parents, and how many spouses they have. And so if I move around from person to person, if that person has more than one, I don't know if I've got any in here that have more than one, but if they had more than one spouse or more than one set of parents, it would show you that number would change. When I go and select either of these parents or spouses, these two tabs work very similar. If I select parents for the person, it's going to show me the parents right here, the father and mother, and it's also going to show me that there's 5 children in that family. There's a right arrow, so if I click on that, it's now showing me all of the brothers and sisters. And from here, I can add another child to that family. I can rearrange the children in that family, or I can click left and go back to the parents. From the parents right here, I can add another set of parents. And if there's more than one set of parents, you're going to have options, to select them. Same thing with spouses. If I go to spouses, you're going to see the spouse. In this case, there's only one spouse with 3 children, and you can see the children. You can add more children to this couple. You can rearrange the children with this couple. I can add another spouse. If there's more than one spouse, you'll see options for rearranging the spouses, and things like that. Now, any one of the people that are listed in these views, if I click on them, it will move to them over here on the, it will move to them over on this panel right here. Oops. If I want to do something else, I can click on the little 3-dot menu, and I will have the option to edit that person. Now that will edit that person just in line. It doesn't switch to the person in the view. So if you're just wanting to edit them here without changing the view, anything about the view you're on, you'll click on edit. You can also unlink them from family members. So if you've got somebody linked in the wrong place, you can come over here, show them in the family that they're not supposed to be in, and then unlink them, or you can delete them from the database. Okay, and that works both parents and spouses. Okay, so let's move down here. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit so that you can see a little bit more of this panel down here. Now, while this upper part always remains the same, it's always the information about the highlighted person. This bottom one actually has 4 tabs to select from. One is the index, one is the history, and the history is going to be, as I've moved around from person to person within this file, it's adding them to this history. So if I think to myself, I was working on them like a half hour ago, I can come over here and just scroll down and I can find them right there, from when I was working on them. There's also bookmarks. So if I go into the bookmarks, if I want to add a person to the bookmarks, I just highlight them on any of these views, click the plus sign, and it adds a bookmark for them. If I want to take a bookmark out, if I don't need this particular bookmark, I just highlight it, press the little trash can, and I can remove bookmarks. But this is really handy if you're working on like a small group of people, and you want to be able to quickly get back to them for the next little while that you're working. You can add the bookmark for them so you can get to them really quickly. The last tab here are groups. And in RootsMagic 7, we had groups, but they were always a little bit clumsy to work with. You never could really tell what groups a person was easily in or add them to groups really easily. In RootsMagic 8 here, you will see all the groups. Any groups you've created are going to be listed here. And when you highlight a person, you're going to see which groups they're in based on a check mark. So if I select this person and I want this person to be in the DNA group, the estimated group, and cousins, I want them to be in that group, I just check those 3. And now that person is in those groups. Okay, so if I move away from this person, and then I come back, you'll see they're in those groups. So it's really easy to get somebody to put somebody in these groups. You also have the pencil here, which will open up your menu. This is where you can go in and create new groups. You can edit the group kind of en masse. If I want to go in, and it'll bring up a list of everybody and allow you to check mark and put a batch of people all into a group at once. So you don't have to go through the file and do people one at a time. If you want to just add them all in all at once, you can do that as well with the groups. Okay, so let's get back to the index. This index is really powerful, and in a lot of ways, it's like the people list over here, except that it's not customizable. You can't just put however many columns you want because there's only a limited amount of information. But it does have the ability to let you select any group that you created and show the people in that group. So we've had people say, well, how do I show a group? If when I highlight a person, that groups shows just the groups and which groups that person's in, this is where you're going to see the list of who's in a group. So I can go down here and I can select a group and I can pick cousins, for example, and now that group is just the cousins group. If I want to see everybody again, I can go back there. Again, just like with that person list, that people list, I can come in and I can type in, for example, comma Leroy, and this is all the Leroys in my file. And as I select a person in this list, it selects the person over here. Now, the advantage this has over this people view is that with the people view, I can go down, I can filter a list and I can go down through the view and then switch back to a pedigree or back to the family or back to the descendant view. And then when I'm done, go back to that list. This doesn't require me to do that. The list always remains here. It's sitting here all the time. So I can just go right down through the list and select people and it'll jump to the person in the list. Now we have had a few people ask, why am I not able to, if I click on somebody over here on the right-hand side, why doesn't it change the list to that person? Okay, and in 7, it used to do that. Okay, the reason for that is because we've added functionality to this that would break. So for example, if I come in here and I type in a search, let's say I'm looking for Leroy's and I want to have this list so that I can go down through here and select people. And as I select a person, I want to look at other people around them. Well, if I were to, for example, click on Freelon Harris, his name's not Leroy. So he's not actually even showing in this filtered list. So the only way by clicking Freelon Harris that I could highlight him in this list is to turn off that search. Okay. And if I were to do that, if I were to click on Freelon, turn off this search and then highlight Freelon, well, then basically it would be like this, then I would have to go in and do that search all over again to bring that back up to go down to the next person in my list. So this search, this selecting a person and having it highlight that person on the pedigree, the family, the descendant view is one way. It's a one-way thing because of the fact that we now filter this list rather than do that incremental search. With that incremental search that we used in older versions of RootsMagic, if I were to type Leroy, these Leroys might be hundreds or thousands of people apart, and I'd have to go next and have it jump down to the next person, as opposed to just being able to quickly see my list of all my Leroys right here. Okay, so that is basically an overview of working with people and families. There's a couple of things I could show you here. These two little arrows back and forward, what those do is those take advantage of this history. And so this history, if I'm on a particular person in this history, when I do back, it's moving back and forth through that history. So if I was to say, oh, I worked on that person about three people ago, I can just click on that back button 3 times and it'll move back through those through that history list back to those 3 people. I'll show you real quickly under tools. The tools are going, as I mentioned, the edit button is things that actually are going to change your data. Tools are going to be things that let you see or kind of manipulate the data that doesn't necessarily. And so you got your relationship calculator. That's where you pick 2 people and it tells you how they're related. Soundex calculator, you enter a name and it tells you what the Soundex code for that is. Date calculator, calendars, counting how many trees are in your file. If you do that, it's going to go through and it's going to tell me Okay, you got this many trees, and this is the number of people in each one of those trees. This lets you find those little floating people or those little small floating trees. You can highlight a person and go right to that tree from there. We also have data clean that lets you, and we'll do a whole separate webinar on that. All of the merging, we'll do a separate webinar on merging as well. The problem list, that's going to show you all the problems for that person. And the not a problem list is if you bring up problems for a person, and maybe it says this person lived to be 110, that's a problem. And maybe the person really did live to be 110. Well, you can mark that as not a problem. Well, the not a problem list actually will bring up a list of people, of problems that you said were not a problem. This person was born before their person's marriage. That wasn't a problem. This person's mother was too old when they were born based on the numbers that they used, and that's not a problem. So these would be things that aren't actually problems. And you can actually remove them from the not a problem list so they show up as problems again in the future. So that's an overview of working with people and families. So are there any other questions, Mike?
Okay, so, boy, you actually did a really good job. A lot of these were answered over the course of the class. Lots of enthusiasm.
Oh, I see one.
for the
I see one. I
code
see
coding
one. How can
tags.
you change the background color?
Oh,
And
yeah.
since that is pretty specific for the most part to this background color, there's two things. There's actually three areas that you can kind of change the color for. This top bar right here, where it has the database name, this is the database color. And I actually should have showed this in the last webinar, but I had forgotten until it was over. This lets you, if you have more than one database, this is really handy. What I can do is I can go into the settings, and in the general settings, I have a thing right here, database color. And so I can go in here and I can set this to purple, for example. So I set that to purple, and when I move away, that's now purple. And there's like 16 or 20, I don't remember how many different colors there are. But the thing that's great about this is that is saved with the database. So if you've got like your main database, and maybe you've got another kind of play database that you put people that you're researching that aren't necessarily you're sure are in your family, but you don't want to accidentally get them mixed up, you can change that database panel at the top to a different color to make it kind of more jarring, so when you open it up, you're like, oh, that's a purple one, that's my temporary one, as opposed to my green regular one. Okay, so there's that's the database color. The second color is what's called the theme color, and that's this greenish part. And under settings, we're going to go to the display, and you're going to have your theme color. And your theme color, you can be green, or it can be blue, or it can be red, purple, silver. So if you like purple, if you're really into purple, you can do purple, you can do red, or blue, or silver. Okay, and it just changes kind of that overview. So I'm going to go ahead and pick red. The last color is this background color that's behind the pedigree and the family view, and that one is also under settings, and that's going to be right here, this background color, and you can click on that and you can make that any color you want. You're not limited to our colors for that background color. What you'll do to do that is over here, there's a little bar that moves up and down to kind of select the general, so you can go into the oranges, the yellows, you got your reds, yellows, greens, blues, purples, reds, back into reds. So if you want to pick a color, let's say we wanted kind of let's make this something really wild, green. you can pick a green, and by moving it up and down, it kind of changes that, but you find one you like. Then the second part is moving this little dot. And this little dot can be anywhere from white to black. In this bottom corner, it's black, but you can move it around. And as you move it right here, you'll see it actually, this is the color you're going to pick. So I can go, bright green, or I can go to a dark green, or, I can go to whatever I want. So you pick whatever shade of green you want. Once you're happy with it, you move out. And now I've got my, my purple database with my red theme with my green background. So you can pretty much color things however you want here. Okay, any others?
Okay, I think that's most of it.
I see one. And we'll talk about this next week too, but that's a good point, because I actually noticed
the labels.
The labels. I noticed that too. And I think it was in the family view. Was it Marshall? Yeah, it was Marshall. What they noticed was that instead of saying father and mother, it had partner and ma. and the way you change that is you go into the person's edit screen and you select the spouse. And so this is different for every, if the person has multiple spouses, you can have whatever labels you want. But you can go up here and change the father label to father, husband, partner, or other. And in this case, it happens to be set to partner. In the mother label, it's the same type of thing. You can do mother, wife, partner, or other. Now, the first three are just, they're hardwired in. But other, if you pick other, you basically make it say whatever you want. So it can be Madre, if that's what you want, and save it. And then I probably have to come back to there it is, Madre. But this is useful. This is useful for for any number of types of things. Same-sex relationships. You can have husband and husband. Whatever. By using that other option, you can make those labels for any couple, whatever you need it to be. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Yeah, so there are several questions here, a lot of it having to do with like the edit screen, and some media questions, and some questions about family search and ancestry, and those will be covered in a future webinar.
Yeah, the one on the edit. Any questions on the edit screen? Come Thursday, because that's what it's about. Thursday's webinar is all about editing people and working with the edit screen and all the different things you can do, because the edit screen in RootsMagic 8 is orders of magnitude more powerful than the one in the older versions of RootsMagic. There's so many things you can do there that a lot of people just don't even realize that are in there yet. So, okay. Any other questions?
I think we're pretty good. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully you've learned a lot about the working with people and family screen in RootsMagic, and join us again Thursday as we look at the edit screen. And until then, have a great week. Take care.